OLED TV buying this year is more confusing than ever. You have last year's highly regarded OLED TVs from LG, like the G2. Then you have this year's upgraded G3 with MLA, but for less you can get an even bigger 83-inch C2 or newer C3. But what about the B2, B3, and A2? And aren't there also amazing OLED TVs from Samsung like the S95B, the S90C, and the amazing S95C this year? Oh wait, I forgot to mention the Sony OLED TVs, winner of the last two King of TVs shootout. Stop the FOMO. Do you have a fear of missing out on getting your first OLED TV because you cannot wrap your head around everything you have to consider? Last year's OLED, this year's OLED, brighter OLED, bigger OLED, what to do? Then this video is for you because in 4 easy steps, we will narrow down the selection of OLED TVs to bring you the right one for your home. But first, let me introduce today's sponsor, Whokeys. Yep, you just finished your big old PC Windows build, you have the best of the best, and sadly, you have less than $20 to your name. Whokeys to the rescue. Use my code SF20 and immediate discount. Let's quickly go through the activation process after you've purchased Windows 10 on Whokeys. Go to your Whokeys account and select My Purchased Orders. See your order. To the far right, click on the button that says View Keys Codes to see the Windows CD code. At the bottom of this order where it says Code Card, to the right is the product key you need to activate Windows. So copy this long number, then go to the Windows menu and click on Settings. In the Settings menu at the bottom, select Update and Security. Select Activation, then select Change Product Key, paste what you copied from Whokeys, click Next, click Activate, and you're done. You can download the Windows 10 Pro key and you're up and running. But that's not all, folks. Whokeys has keys for games too. Steam, Origin, Uplay, you name it, you got it. Check out their sites. There are discounts for all sorts of stuff. And most importantly, you want to be productive? What about Office Suite? Yep, you can download a copy of Office Professional with my code SF20 at checkout and bam. Step 1. Is HDR even important to you? If you're watching mostly news, over-the-air broadcasts, streaming old TV shows, YouTube, basic sports, then HDR is not really a big deal. You can ignore specs like wide color gamut, color volume, HDR10, Dolby Vision, HDR10 Plus. All of that is needless mumbo jumbo that will just confuse you and you'll be paying more without really benefiting from it. Basically, you are enjoying your TV as if it's still 2015. So how are OLED TVs better than the best TVs of 2015? 2 things. Infinite contrast and slightly brighter. Infinite contrast means from the deepest blacks to the brightest brights, you're going to see it all and it looks very real. Much better than the slightly washed out image of your older TV, and it is slightly brighter for the content you're watching. Now, this is not super bright, but definitely compared to your older TV from 2015 or before, it is bright enough. So if this is you, great news. You are going to benefit from both less expensive OLED TVs and a great selection of sizes. I'm talking about the LG A2. At 55 inches, around $900, at 65 inches, $1,200, and at 77 inches, around $1,700. But what about the B2? Well, you may be paying more than what you really need. B2 adds a 120Hz native panel. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. It's slightly brighter and a few more gaming features, but all of these things cost money that you may never benefit. But this is a good time to pause and address some of the criticisms of the LG A2, specifically that 60Hz panel instead of 120Hz on the more expensive OLEDs and not bright enough. Well, as far as the 60Hz panel, it really doesn't make a difference unless you're a gamer. Today, motion on basic streaming, over-the-air content, 60Hz panel is fine. But as far as brightness is concerned, how much brightness do you need? Well, how much you need really depends on the brightness of your room. In moderately lit to slightly dark rooms, the A2 is absolutely fine. And if you are fine with your older TV in your room, then the A2 will match that brightness. The question is, if your room is a bit brighter and you find your older TV not to be bright enough, it takes us to step 2. How bright is your room for watching the basic content, right? We're not talking HDR yet. This is that basic TV. If your room is moderately lit, the A2 may be a little bit too dim. Go to either the C2 or the Sony A80K. Both of these are okay in a moderately lit room. The B2 is not as bright and the cost is so close, I wouldn't consider the B2, whereas the Sony A90J is actually a bit more expensive but not brighter. So the C2 and the A80K, choose the one that is actually on sale because the truth is they're both excellent TVs for basic TV watching. If your room is super bright and you need the brightest OLED possible to fight that ambient light, there are only 4 OLED TVs to consider, beginning with the least expensive one, the Samsung S95B, then the Samsung S90C, S95C, and the brightest OLED you can get for this type of watching, the LG G3 with MLA. In my review comparing the G3 and the S95C, which you can watch right here, I discovered that the G3 is slightly brighter than the S95C, right? That slight edge goes to the G3. However, it does not come with a stand. So if you need a table stand, you have to buy that separately. So even though they're priced nearly identical, the G3 might end up being just a little bit more expensive because of the extra stand. The S95C is also very bright, absolutely fine. Just choose based on your preference for LG or Samsung. Brightness is very close, but again, the G3 just edges out the Samsung S95C. But on the other hand, the G3 does have the 5-year warranty, panel replacement warranty, and the S95C is 1 year like most other TV models. But there is a catch to both of these TVs, well, all of them, the G3, S95C, S95B, S90C, and that is size. Which takes us to step number 3. How large do you need this TV? If you need an 83-inch or larger, 83, 85-inch, unfortunately, the super bright OLED TVs I just mentioned have a limited size selection. Up to 77 inches are the G3, S95C, and S90C, and the S95B is only 55 and 65 inches. So, if that size is big enough for you, start with the S95B to see if the brightness can get you there, right? But if you need brighter than the S95B, skip the S90C, skip the S95C, go straight to the G3 because the brightness similarity between the 95B, the 90C, and the 95C are very close. The G3 would be a step up from the S95B in terms of brightness, and you can get up to 77 inches on the G3. However, if you need 83 inches or larger, none of these TVs can get you there because they're limited in size. Even though the 83-inch G3 does exist, it does not have that MLA technology, which made the 55, 65, and 77-inch G3 brighter. But G3 at 83-inch, not as bright. As a matter of fact, it'll be very similar in brightness to the G2, the C2, the C3, and this year's A80L. So among these TVs, which OLED do you need? Well, first, if you are in a super bright room, none of them, not bright enough. You have to go to miniLED. But the good news is this, in a super bright room, the high-end flagship miniLEDs that are similarly priced as these 83-inch OLEDs, more than bright enough, performance is amazing, although not quite infinite contrast. Their contrast is superb, and I would have no problems recommending 85-inch mini-LED TVs, specifically this year's QM8 from TCL, the U8K from Hisense, the best price to performance ratio of bright mini-LEDs in 2023. But if you want a name brand you recognize, then the Sony X95K 85-inch or the X95L 85-inch, super bright, and from Samsung, their Neo QLEDs in the 85-inch size, specifically the Q90A, 90B, 95B, 95C this year. This year's 90C, the QN85B is also very bright. 85C will be bright as well. Choose the one that fits your budget, but all of those TVs will match the brightness very closely to the top bright OLEDs in the 77-inch size. But then back to OLED TVs. Let's say your room isn't super bright, but you want the 83-inch. Moderately lit, which of the 83-inch OLED TVs should you consider? I definitely start with the 83-inch LG C2. It will be the best price to brightness and performance ratio. Now, why not the C3? Well, because it's newer, You're not getting much more than a newer processor, maybe slightly perceptually brighter, but it's not worth that premium. So what about the G2? I'd consider it if that 5-year panel replacement warranty is important to you, but that would be the reason why you're paying a little extra. And the G3, it's just way too expensive at this point of the year. Now, if you want to get a Sony and you're considering the A90J, the A90J is not brighter than the C2. Very similar, in fact, but I would say wait for the Sony A80L at 83 inches. That will be slightly brighter than the A90J, and you'll get all the modern advances coming out this year. So it'll either be the C2, or if you're a Sony fan, get the A80L. But now comes the conundrum. If you're paying 83 inches for either the C2 or the A80L, now you're bumping up against the price of the amazingly awesome S95C and the G3 with MLA at 77 inches. Keep it large, but slightly less bright, or go whole hog into a flagship TV, the G3 and the S95C? The answer is in step 4. Let's say your room is moderately lit, not super bright. HDR importance comes into play. You have to go with a 77-inch S95C and G3 because for gamers and HDR content. So, step 4. If HDR is important to you and gaming features are also important, only 2 TVs should be considered. The G3 and the S95C. Both are top in their class for HDR impact and gaming features. But if you are a little bit short of money and you're okay with a 65 or 55-inch size, I would start with the S95B. But for a few hundred extra, it's worth upgrading to the S95C and the G3, just getting the best of the best. But you're wondering, wait, which one should I get? Because they're both so good. And you're willing to watch 16 hours of my live stream to find out. I reviewed them here. And for more OLED news and reviews, watch this. Until next time, stop the FOMO.